Death Wobble. If you haven't experienced it, let me describe it for you. Imagine going to prom and getting stuck with the chubbiest girl on the dance floor. Then when you take her home, you realize she's in control. And all you can do through all the shaking, rattling, vibration is just lay back and let it happen.
All right. So one thing I want to say, guys, about these videos is I'm not here to get clicks. I'm here to truly help you guys find the solution to a problem. So this video may be a little bit longer because it's more in depth, but if something's broken on a Jeep JK, I've probably fixed it. So I just want to give you the knowledge and my experience so that you can fix it properly. So I know these videos are in a little bit different format than most of the YouTubers out there, but rather than give you one thing to look at and then that doesn't work, so you go search 100 more videos and you're looking at all these different videos to try to find a solution with a lot of bad information, this video is going to give you a lot of good information. So uh, be that as it may, I know that a lot of people um, are looking for a video that's maybe a little bit quicker and to the point. This isn't going to be it. A little housekeeping. Death wobble is a safety issue. And in this video, we're going to give you an overview, not a repair procedure. If you think your Jeep may have death wobble, have a qualified suspension, alignment shop, or off-road shop inspect it and determine the actual cause. What is death wobble? The definition of death wobble is a rapid self-reinforcing oscillation of the front axle and steering system. So in a nutshell, it's something in the front end or suspension or chassis has enough play in it that the bump input from the road or the surface, usually a pothole, it can be an uneven surface, it could be railroad tracks, washboards, whatnot. Um, that is going to make the front axle rock side to side around its steering axis. Um, on a Jeep with a solid front axle, both front wheels are connected to the same housing. So those wheels are gonna not rotate, not move independently like an independent front suspension. So solid axles are that's the death wobble culprit right there. That's the downside to a solid axle is you can get death wobble. The bottom line, guys, is that a healthy front end with tight components, it can absorb the same bump without starting that cycle. A front end with play somewhere in the chain is the recipe for death wobble. What does death wobble feel like, and how do you know that you have death wobble? For anybody that's had death wobble, they know, and it's not subtle. It's not the same as an unbalanced tire. It's not the same as a loose wheel. It's violent. It's violent, and it usually occurs. It can occur from 20 miles an hour up to 60 miles an hour, and the difference is a wheel or tire imbalance usually happens at the same mile an hour. So you want to make sure that you you isolate the two. You have death wobble and you have tire imbalance. They're two separate things. Now, tire imbalance can start that chain reaction going into death wobble. So you want to make sure the first step that you do is you want to look at your tires. You want to inspect them. You want to make sure the wheel weights haven't fallen off. You want to make sure that your tires are inflated to the same, PSI, especially up front. I've seen it where one tire's at 25. I ran out of CO2. The other one's at 40. Okay. It can cause problems. It's not going to cause death wobble, but you want to eliminate that first. So if I had death wobble, the first thing I would do is eliminate tire imbalance. Take your vehicle to the tire shop, go to Discount, go wherever you, Firestone, Goodyear, whatever you use, and have the tires rebalanced. That will tell you quite a bit. That will tell you, and make sure you tell them to air up the tires, because Discount doesn't like to do that. So you air up the tires and you balance them. Then you retorque your wheels. Now that's going to tell you, are the wheels balanced and I'm torqued? Those two things are important. If you can eliminate that, now we can move on to death wobble and the causes of death wobble. The first thing that I would look at if I had death wobble, number one, track bar. The track bar centers your axle in the vehicle. So as you're driving down the road, if you were to hit, and then these are the two tires, if you were to hit an uneven surface, if there's something loose in the track bar, that axle starts moving violently side to side, and that causes death wobble. Almost always, death wobble is caused by track bar or ball joints. Okay, so number one with the track bar, and I'll show a picture of these components below. Track bar. You want to take the track bar off. That's my best suggestion, because nobody does it the right way. You want to take the track bar off because you can then inspect the bushings on the track bar, and you can look at the two mounting holes, axle side and frame side. You want to make sure the holes for the bolt are not oblong or bigger or wallowed out, which happens a lot. Okay, when you tighten those bolts down, you can't see. You think, hey, the bolt's tight, but those oblong holes are letting that track bar move back and forth. Remove the track bar, inspect the bushings, inspect the mount holes. Lastly, make sure there are no hairline cracks on the mounts on the axle or on the frame side. Very common, very common. So check those things. If there's nothing wrong, put the track bar back in, torque it down to the specifications in the manual, or in the torque specs, if you will. And I would add a little bit, because you're adding bigger tires or more violent acts when you wheel. So I add a little bit. I add about 20 foot-pounds of torque to my track bar. Second, ball joints. That is very common. When you go over a 33-inch tire, you are adding weight to that wheel system, if you will, the ball joints and the suspension, that it wasn't really designed for. Okay, it'll handle it, but ball joints, when you go to 35, it's putting a lot of stress on the ball joints. When you go to 37s on a JK axle, non-Rubicon, you are asking for trouble. When you go to 38s, 39s, or 40s on a stock axle, you shouldn't be doing it. People do it. You want to make sure that those ball joints are in good shape, because the factory style ball joints are going to last 30 to 50,000 miles, usually on a 33, wheeling it every other weekend. When you add bigger tires, that mileage goes down exponentially. You may get 20,000 miles out of a ball joint. So, what I suggest is testing the ball joints after you do the track bar. And you want to elevate the Jeep and put the front axle on jack stand so that the wheels are hanging. And you want to do that. You want to get the tire about 6 inches off the ground. I'll put a little picture in here to kind of show you what I'm talking about. And then you want to take a long pry bar and put it over a fulcrum under the tire, and you want to lift up on that tire, and you want to watch that lower ball joint. If it moves at all vertically in the knuckle, that's your problem. Okay. You can put a dial indicator. I think that it's 50 thousandths until they're worn out. You may get a little, but I think the spec is 50 thousandths. Don't quote me on that. But you, most of the time, if you can't find a problem in the track bar, you're going to find the problem in the ball joints. It's usually the lowers. Now, as far as ball joint replacement goes, there are several expensive ball joints and some voodoo witchcraft snake oil ones out there. There's Dynatrack and there's Terraflex, and there's all of these ball joints that are $300-400, and then you can then buy $100 worth of parts to rebuild them. So now you got $500-600 in a ball joint. If you want to do that, that's cool. If you like doing that kind of work, that's great. What I recommend is there's a brand called XRF ball joints, and they are sold on eBay. It's a small shop. I think they're in Iowa. I've had XRFs. I've only had 2 sets, and I've run 35s and 37s, and I have 120,000 miles on them. They are great, and they are $99, uppers and lowers. So if I get 50, 60,000 miles out of a $100 ball joint, is that better or worse than getting 50, 60,000 on a $400 set? You do the math. I don't see the advantage to these expensive ball joints, but you can do what you want. That's just my advice: is buy a good standard style ball joint for $100. If you got to replace it 3 or 4 times, you're still ahead of the game buying these expensive rebuildable ball joints. The other thing to check your tie rod ends. So the tie rod is the link that connects the 2 wheels together. And when we talked earlier, we talked about how those wheels, when they start to oscillate, that's when you get death wobble. Well, one of the main culprits of that is those joints wear out on the tie rod. Okay. I have upgraded to a 1-ton. I feel that if you go over a 35, a 1-ton steering is needed. I believe that the 1-ton is good for everything up until a 40. Then you can talk about 2.5-ton or ball joint deletes, all those things. But I would check the ends on the tie rod, and I would check my drag link, which that's what connects your pitman arm from your steering to the knuckle on your passenger side wheel. When you give the steering wheel inputs, that bar is what connects to actually makes one wheel turn, and then the tie rod is just a follow link, if you will. So you're pulling one wheel and the other wheel's kind of following along. I'll do what I want. If those tie rod ends are bad, that's when you're going to get the wheels, instead of going like this, they're going to go, this one can move a little bit or independent of this one. then you're going to get death wobble. Okay, so check those out. The other culprit can be, and I'm going kind of in order, unit bearings. That's your main hub, if you will, that the wheel mounts to. That's another thing that'll wear out with heavier tires and wheel combinations. So you want to make sure that those will usually make a little bit of noise, and you want to lift with that wheel off the ground when you're checking your ball joints. You want to grab the wheel 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock and try to rock it back and forth. That's your unit bearing. If that's bad, that can cause death wobble as well. The last item is a little bit controversial, and that is your alignment. Now, a lot of people will put a lift kit on, they'll get death wobble. They'll have a stock Jeep and they'll have death wobble. And the interweb will tell them, go get an alignment. Well, with a solid axle, there is no real alignment per se. Now, your camber is not adjustable. That's your wheels when they're parallel with each other. Your camber is this way or out. The only time that ever will change is if your C's, your outer C's, and your axle tubes, if something in there bends. That's why the JK, it's a good idea to have the front and rear axles trussed, especially in a non-Rubicon where the tubes are a little bit thinner. That would be one of the first things I would do is truss it. But when you truss it, you want to throw an alignment bar through that axle housing, make sure that it's not bent already. So with alignment, the only thing you can really change on a Jeep solid axle is your toe in. So when your wheels are parallel with each other, the toe in or out is, do those wheels go out, level, or in? Okay. When they go in slightly, what that does is when you turn the wheel to go around a corner, if you let go of that wheel, that Jeep should try to straighten itself out. If your toe in is even or out or incorrect, that Jeep will not want to return to center. So that's really the only thing that you can adjust. And you have to do that when you add bigger tires. As a rule of thumb, it's about an 1/8 inch for each tire size over 33. So if you go with a 35-inch tire, you want to toe them in about an 1/8. If you go with a 37, you want to go about a 1/4, roughly. Okay. That'll get you dialed in close enough. One final thing, your control arms. Similarly to the track bar, your upper and lower control arms have bushings that can wear out, as well as their mounts can become cracked, damaged, or oblonged. Another thing that happens is sometimes we smash our front lower control arm mounts, and that'll actually force the axle to shift slightly. And what that can do is throw off what's called caster. And caster is basically how the tire, what point of the tire touches the pavement. So if you were to take something round, I don't have anything round. Let's take this bottle here. So if this is your tire, this is your pavement, and it's hitting at the very bottom, caster sets this out so that the pavement kind of hits up around the corner, and that kind of pulls your vehicle and pulls the wheels straight, if you will. So if you have an issue with your control arms, that can throw off your caster. And that's another adjustment that you can make on your alignment. However, you will need adjustable control arms. So if you get in a lift over 1.5 to 2 inches, you can get away without adjustable control arms, but you really need some way to adjust that caster. The best way to do it is getting a pair of front lower adjustable control arms only. You don't have to necessarily use adjustable uppers at this point. So if you're kind of on that fringe, if you're hitting 2.5 to 3.5, 4 inches of lift, and you're having death wobble issues, check the control arms, get it to an alignment shop, and make sure that they are giving you what your caster number actually is, so that you can compare that and see where you need to be. So, in summary, the things that you want to check if you have death wobble, in order of most likeliness, if you will, are going to be your track bar, your ball joints, um, check your tie rod ends, check your unit bearings, and check your control arms. And then at that point, if all of that's good, make sure that everything's in alignment with the right caster, because that may be, you may just be right on that fringe. And when you're going over bumps and so forth, that's what's causing the issue. So thanks, guys. Thanks for checking out this video. If you found any of this stuff helpful, I'd really appreciate a like, a thumbs up, a follow, subscribe, share, if you will. They're really important to me right now. I'd love to be able to grow this channel and to get some of this information out to you guys. Also, if you have any questions, or if you have any issues that have come up with death wobble, or other fixes, other things that you found that are causing the issue, leave a comment below. As always, I appreciate you watching the video, and we'll see you on the next one.